session, we will discuss about the structure of the DNA and the scientist who proposed the structure of the DNA. So it comes in unit number 7 in 12th NCERT textbook. So we know that before starting every unit, we need to study about the scientist who contributed in the field of biology, right? So when we start 7th unit, so we need to study about two scientists. So they are related to the discovery of the DNA. They are related to the discovery of the structure of the DNA. Their names are, I think all of us know, their names are Watson and Crick. Their names are Watson and Crick. Now, there is introduction about these scientists. Let us see that introduction and then we will get into the topic like what is the structure they proposed, how did they propose, all that we will see. Before going into the structure of the DNA, let us see like what they have done, in which field they worked out, on which topics they have done their PhD, which institute they have done their PhD, all that we are going to see first. Okay, now let's go on. We'll talk about the first scientist. His name is James Dewey Watson. His complete name is James Dewey Watson. And we know Crick, but the Crick's complete name is Francis Harry Crompton Crick. Francis Harry Crompton Crick. And his name is James Dewey Watson. So Watson is born on 6th April 1928. Watson is born on 6th April 1928 in Chicago. Watson completed his BSc in zoology in 1947. Now, when he was doing zoology, when he's graduating zoology, he has an interest of bird watching. So their movements, their migrations and all. Now, that interest turned him towards genetics. Now, he wanted to study about genetics. Now, then he received fellowship for doing his graduation in zoology at Indiana University, Bloomington. So, he received his fellowship for doing his graduation in zoology at Indiana University, Bloomington, where he completed his graduation. He completed his PhD also. When did he complete his PhD? In the year 1950. In the year 1950, he completed his PhD and his thesis is on what title he worked, what is his research topic, okay, what is he published. So his research topic is the study of the effect of X-rays. We know X-rays at one particular thing, they cause mutations, right? So study of X-rays on bacteriophage multiplication. Bacteriophage means it is a virus which infects bacteria. What is the effect of X-rays on virus multiplication? Which virus which infects the bacteria? That is his PhD topic. Where did he complete his PhD? Indiana University, Bloomington. When did he complete his PhD? 1950. What is his thesis of his PhD topic? Effect of X-rays on the bacteriophage multiplication. All this is about Watson. Now coming to Crick. Crick is older than Watson. Watson is born in 1928, but Crick is born in 1916 only. So Crick is born 8th June 1916 in Northampton, England, right? Crick, he studied physics at the University College London. He studied zoology, Watson. Crick studied physics at University College London. Crick completed his BSc in physics in 1937. Remember, Watson completed his BSc in 1947, but this person 10 years ahead itself, he completed his PhD. He completed his BSc in the year 1927. Now, he completed his PhD in 1954. If you recollect, these two people proposed the structure of the DNA in 1953, right? So, after the publishing the structure of DNA, Crick finished his PhD topic. Means 1 year afterwards, he completed his PhD in the year 1954. Now, what is Crick's PhD topic? What is his thesis? Means it is X-ray diffraction studies. We know what is X-ray diffraction. X-ray diffraction is to crystallize a molecule, and then when you crystallize a structure, you can find out the dimensions, you can find out the diameter, you can find out the distance, you can find out the structure. Everything in detail we can get when we do X-ray diffraction. Now, Crick's PhD topic is X-ray diffraction studies, not on DNA. X-ray diffraction studies on protein structures and polypeptide structures, because X-ray diffraction studies of DNA are done by Wilkin and Franklin. They already did it, and these people borrowed their data to propose the structure. Since the DNA diffraction studies are already done, so Crick can't do it. So then he did the X-ray diffraction studies of proteins and polypeptides. So we have seen like what Watson has done, what Crick has done. So who is he? He's a zoologist. Who is he? He has done physics, right? What is his PhD topic? Where did he do his PhD topic? What is Crick's PhD topic? When did he complete his PhD? Then both of them, when they met each other, so they came to know that their common interest is to give the structure of DNA. So we studied in the lecture 1, we studied like what they want to find out the putative nature of the genetic material. Then finally, with Hershey and Chase experiments in the year 1952, it was proved that the structure DNA is the genetic material. Now when we know that DNA is very important structure, is very important molecule in molecular basis, then we need to know A to Z about that, every information about that. So then these people came forward and they worked on the structure. So they came to know that they have a common interest to solve the structure of DNA. Then they made a first serious attempt, which was a failure, which was unsatisfactory. Then they understood, so why their effort got failed or unsatisfactory. For the second time, they came out with more experimental details, they came out with more literature. So they did not think of borrowing the data from Wilkin and Franklin. They did not think of borrowing the data from Chargaff. They collected all the literature. They have done more experiments, and second time again they came out to propose the structure of DNA at the mid of the month of March in the year 1953. And finally they proposed the structure of DNA. They told it is a double helical model of DNA. Which DNA? The most stable form of DNA, bDNA, was proposed in a journal, international journal called Nature. In the same journal, Wilkin and Franklin also, they have published their X-ray diffraction details of DNA. So their second effort was based on more experimental data and literature. So then with this experimental data and literature, so they were successful to propose the structure of DNA in the mid of March in the year 1953. So what did they tell? They told DNA has a double helical structure. DNA has a double helical structure, and they even told the scheme of replication of DNA. So in this chapter, what we are going to do is replication, transcription, translation and regulation of gene expression only. So they told, Watson and Crick told that the DNA replicates on the basis of base complementarity, and they told it is semi-conservative method of replication. They told that DNA replicates semi-conservatively. What is semi-conservative method of replication? We will see when we are doing replication in detail. So they told DNA has a helical structure. DNA is not single stranded, it is double stranded. And they told the replication scheme also for DNA. When? In 1953. In which journal they published? In the journal called Nature. Now this is a hallmark discovery about a biggest molecule which is there in the gene, which controls our expressions, which is responsible for our behavior, patterns, inheritance, everything. Now what are the awards and rewards these two people got? So first one is John Collins Warren Prize they got from Massachusetts General Hospital. When did they get it? In 1959. 1953 they proposed. In 1959 they both of them received John Collins Warren Prize from Massachusetts General Hospital in the year 1959. The second prize what they got is Lasker Award in the next year after 59, 1960. In 1960 they received Lasker Award. Then after 2 years, means in 1962 they received Research Corporation Prize. In the same year 1962, the biggest prize on top of that, they received a Nobel Prize. These two people along with Wilkin, these three people shared Nobel Prize in the field of medicine and physiology for the structure, for discovering the structure of DNA. They got Nobel Prize in the year 1962. And Crick was elected as Fellowship in Royal Society in the year 1959. This year when they got John Collins Warren Prize, Crick got elected as Fellowship of Research Society in the year 1959. So children, this is the information about the two eminent scientists. Each sentence matters. Each sentence matters because if you see the recent NEET question papers, in the recent NEET question papers, so couple of times they have asked questions on the scientists, their details, what they have done, what they have contributed. Altogether, if you see, when we are having 10 units, so we are going to study about 10 scientists, right? So this is a detail about one scientist which we are going to study when we are doing unit 7. Who are they? Watson and Crick. What Watson did? Watson, he worked his PhD topic on the effect of X-rays in bacteriophage multiplication. What is his Crick's PhD topic? Crick PhD topic is X-ray diffraction studies on polypeptide structures and protein structures. Both of them together worked on giving out the structure of the double helical model of DNA and proposing the replication scheme also. They told the DNA replicates semi-conservatively. And what are the awards they got? John Colling Warren Prize in 59. In 1960 they got Lasker Award. In 1962 they got Research Corporation Prize. And then on top of this, these two people shared Nobel Prize in the year 1962 along with Wilkins. So this is an introduction to the structure of DNA. Now let us see what structure they proposed, what details they gave us. Now let's go on to our next topic, structure of DNA. Let's do it. Hope you understood this information. Now there we are having the pictorial view of the double helical model of DNA. Now we will see the characteristics points also in this session. Now let's see the structure of DNA proposed by Watson and Crick. So we are now working out with the structure of bDNA proposed by Watson and Crick. So now Watson and Crick proposed the double helical model, and this double helical model is based on two major investigations. So the structure, what is that structure? Double helical model. Let us write down the double helical model. Double helical model is based on two major investigations. It is based on two major investigations. One investigation is by Chargaff, other investigation is by Wilkins and Franklin. So one investigation is by Erwin Chargaff, who proposed Chargaff's rule, and the other investigation is by Maurice Wilkins and Rosalind Franklin. Now, from these two investigations, they were able to successfully give the structure of bDNA. Now, what did Chargaff contribute? What did Wilkins and Franklin contributed? That we will see. Chargaff is a chemist. In the year 1950, Erwin Chargaff I am talking about. So, in 1950, so Erwin Chargaff in the year 1950, he proposed two important generalizations. He gave two important generalizations. 1950, he gave two important generalizations. What are the two important generalizations Chargaff has given? One is Bayes rule, other one is Bayes ratio. So what are the two? So one, I am telling, it is Bayes rule, and the second one is Bayes ratio, right? So now, what is Bayes rule? What did Chargaff told? So Chargaff told that like the ratio of purines and pyrimidines in a double-stranded DNA is constant. He told that the concentration of adenine will be equal to the concentration of thymine. The concentration of guanine will be equal to the concentration of cytosine. He told that in a double-stranded DNA, if 10 A's are there, 10 T's will be there. If 10 G's are there, 10 C's will be there. Altogether, if 20 A and G purines are there, 20 T and C's will be there, pyrimidines will be there. That is called Bayes rule. What is Bayes rule? Bayes rule states that the ratio of purine to pyrimidine. The ratio of purine to pyrimidine is 1:1. He tells that the ratio of purine to pyrimidine is 1:1. What is 1:1? 1:1 means A plus G are purines will be equal to the number of T plus C, he told. A plus G is equal to T plus G will become unity. So he told the ratio is 1:1. This is a base ratio. Means on one strand, if A is there, parallelly on other strand, T will come. On one strand, G is there, parallel on other strand, C will come. That means how many A's are there, those many T's will come. How many G's are there, those many C's will come. So the ratio of purine to pyrimidine is 1:1 in double stranded DNA. That's what he proposed. Now, what is base rule? He told that base rule states that number of ATs by GCs is constant for a species. Let's go with an example, right? If they are telling there are 100 bases in a DNA, we are working out with a question. There are 100 bases in a DNA which is having 100 bases, they will tell you, so 10% is adenine. 10% is adenine. 100 bases information they gave you and they told adenine is 10% and they are asking you find out the percentage of guanine. Find out the percentage of guanine they are asking you. Now let us work out. If there are 100 bases, in that 10% means 10 bases are A's. If 10 A's are there, we know 10 A's will pair with 10 T's by 2 hydrogen bonds. These two are the hydrogen bonds. I'll write 10 thymines. 10 adenines will pair with 10 thymines. Out of 100, 10 and 10 means 20. 20 minus 100 is 80. So then A and T contributed 20, then remaining 80 will be G and C. In that, if 40 is G, 40 will be C. That means they asked you to find out the percentage of guanine. You can simply tell that 40%. If 40 is G, G pairs with C by 3 hydrogen bonds, then 40 will be C's. 40 plus 40, 80, 90 and 100, you got the 100%. Understood? So then, if you work out in such a manner, which we have done, if you see what is base rule then, A plus T children, how much it is? 10 plus 10, 20. So 20, A plus T will be 20 for the numerical what we have worked out. G plus C will be 40 plus 40, 80, right? 40 plus 40 will be 80. So now it will be 1 by 4. It will be 1 by 4, right? How much it will be? It will be 0.25. So like that you will get a base rule. So this value is constant for a species. This value is constant for a species. For example, if we have to see for human liver cell, this value is 1.58. This value for the human liver cell, what is it? It is 1.58. It is constant for the human. And if we have to see the value for E. coli, it is 0.93. And if we have to see the same value for a T2 bacteriophage, if we have to see the value for T2 bacteriophage, it is 1.89. What is the value? It is 1.86. So, means the value is variable from species to species. But then if we come to base ratio, it is 1:1 if it is a double stranded DNA. So, this is the information Chargaff has proposed and which information was taken by Watson and Crick while they are proposing the structure of the DNA. What is the information Crick gave? So, Crick talked about base complementarity. He told on one strand if purines are there, on complementary strand, on the opposite strand, pyrimidines will come. If A is there on one strand, on the opposite strand, T will come. A will link to T by 2 bonds. G will link to C by 3 bonds. Hydrogen bonds. That we will see. Who is a person who identified that nitrogen bases have hydrogen bonds in between means L.C. Pauling. L.C. Pauling, who proposed the secondary structure, alpha helical and beta pleated sheets of the protein. He is a person who observed hydrogen bonds between the nitrogen bases in the DNA structure also. So, I think you understood what Crick has contributed towards the structure of the DNA. Now, let us see the second major discovery which was done by Maurice Wilkins and Rosalind Franklin. We will see that information also. Hope you understood the contribution done by Chargaff. We will work out what this Wilkin and Franklin has done. I told you, Wilkin and Franklin, they worked out the X-ray diffraction studies of the DNA molecule. These people, they worked out the X-ray diffraction studies of the DNA molecule and they were able to give the stoichiometric values. They crystallized the DNA and then they were able to give the stoichiometric values. How many base pairs are there per turn? what is the diameter of the DNA, what is the pitch of the DNA, what is the rotation of the DNA, what is raise per base pair. All this information what Watson and Crick has established, they wrote it, was borrowed by Wilkin and Franklin. What they have done, so they have worked out the X-ray diffraction. They have worked out X-ray diffraction of the DNA structure. They worked out the X-ray diffraction of DNA structure and they proposed the stoichiometry. These are the people, they told that, these people told that number of base pairs per turn. Here is a diagram. If you see, I tried to show you 1, 2 complete turns and third turn is half the turn. Now, if you see, I tried to give all the number of base pairs here. This is the first base pair, second base pair, third base pair, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 and 10. So, similarly, if you work here also, it is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 and 10. That means one turn has how many base pairs? Count here and tell me. 10 base pairs or 20 nucleotides. Who told it? Wilkin and Franklin, by their X-ray diffraction data, they told it. So, number of base pairs per turn, just now we saw it is 10 base pairs, or you can tell 20 nucleotides. We can also tell it is 20 nucleotides. A pair has 2 nucleotides, right? So, this is the first information they gave. And then they told, like, what is the rotation? It rotates. One turn rotates a complete 360 degrees. So, rotation per turn. Rotation per turn. We know if we also have to rotate a one complete turn, it is 360 degrees. Rotation per turn is 360 degrees. Now, if 10 base pairs are making 360 degrees rotation, one base pair will make 360 by 10, 36 degrees. So, rotation per base pair, how much? So, 10 base pairs are there. So, 360 by 10 is 36 degrees is rotation per base pair. So, then raise per base pair, from one base pair to another base pair, what is the distance? So, we can tell it as, we can call it as distance per base pair, or we can call it as rise per base pair. The value rise per base pair is 3.4 angstroms. The rise per base pair value is 3.4 angstroms, or in terms of nanometer, if you have to give, we can give it 0.34 nanometers it is. Then we can calculate the pitch of the helix. So, what is a formula to calculate the pitch of the helix? If you have to calculate the pitch of the helix, the formula is rise per base pair into number of base pairs per turn. Pitch of the helix, how can you calculate? It is rise per base pair into number of base pairs per turn. We just now saw rise per base pair value is 3.4 angstroms. So, it will be 3.4 angstroms into number of base pairs per turn is 10 base pairs. So, 3.4 into 10. So, what do you get? 34 angstroms. What is this 34 angstroms value? It is the pitch of the helix. You can write it in terms of nanometers also. It will be, how much it will be? 3.4. 3.4 nanometers will be the pitch. So, by using X-ray diffraction data, you are able to see how much data they were able to derive. They made the DNA into crystalline structure and they told DNA has a helical structure. Per helix, 10 base pairs are there. Rotation 360 degrees. Rotation per base pair 36 degrees. Rise per base pair 3.4 angstroms. Pitch of the helix is 34 angstroms. And then they told when the DNA is rotating like this around a common axis, we are taking a common axis, and around the common axis when you are rotating the DNA, so it makes grooves. So, one groove will be major groove, another groove will be minor groove. So, this groove which is big is called major groove, and This groove, which is small, is called minor groove. Because of the helical rotation, there will be alternately major groove and minor groove. And what is the diameter of the DNA? The diameter of the DNA, this is the diameter. The diameter of the DNA throughout the helix is constant. How much it is? 20 angstroms. The diameter of helix. Throughout the helix it is constant and it is 20 angstroms. Or if you want to give it in nanometer, write down it is 2 nanometers. It is 2 nanometers, right? So, diameter of helix is constant. Why it is constant? Throughout the helix, why it is constant? Because of base pairing. Because one purine always fits a pyrimidine only. So, that is why the diameter will always be constant. Because purine has a particular size, pyrimidine has a particular size. So, it will be constant. If you try to fit 2 purines, then it will become fatty. If you try to fit 2 pyrimidines, it will shrink. But since one purine is fitting with one pyrimidine, the diameter is always constant. How much it is? 20 angstroms. There is a major groove and minor groove because of the rotation. And major groove is a place where the histone proteins will come and bind to the DNA to give stability to the structure. Okay. So, this is the information what Wilkin and Franklin has given with their X-ray diffraction data. And Chargaff has proposed the base complementarity rule. He told the ratio of purines and pyrimidines is 1. It is unity. Now, what are the points Watson and Crick gave? We will see that also under the structure of the DNA, right? So, hope you understood this stoichiometric values done by Wilkin and Franklin. These people also have published this data in the same year, in the same journal where Watson and Crick has proposed their double helical model. Now, what are the salient features of the double helical model proposed by Watson and Crick? That we will see now. It includes this information also, but actually it is not their information. They borrowed the information from Chargaff and Wilkin and Franklin. Now, what are the salient features? Of bDNA. So, they told the DNA is a double-stranded helical structure. So, DNA is double-stranded helical structure. You can see the picture here. There are 2 strands. They are in a helical pattern. That's the first point they told. And then the next point they told, both the strands are anti-parallel to each other. Both the strands are anti-parallel to each other. What do you mean by anti-parallel to each other? Now, if there are 2 strands, here is one polynucleotide strand and this is the other polynucleotide strand. We know the ends of a polynucleotide strand are 5' end and 3' end. If both the 5' ends are on one side, both the 3' ends are on the opposite side, then it is called as parallel. But if the 5' end for one DNA is here, whereas the 5' end of the other strand is here. If the 3' end of one strand is here and the 3' of other strand is here, this is what is called anti-parallel nature. You can see if the 3' is there, parallel to that 3' of the other strand is not there, 5' is there, means it is anti-parallel. So, they told DNA is double helical structure. Then they told both the strands are anti-parallel to each other. Then they told both the strands are complementary to each other in terms of base pairing. So, both the strands are complementary in base pairing, they told. They are complementary in base pairing. What do you mean by complementary in base pairing? Means, that's what Chargaff told. Means, if one strand has adenine as a base, then the opposite strand, what is adenine? It is purine. The opposite strand should have a complementary base, means it should be a pyrimidine. A pairs with which pyrimidine? With thymine. How do they join with each other? By hydrogen bonds. So, here is a hydrogen bond between A and T. When you see the structure, then you can see that 2 hydrogen bonds can easily be formed between A and T. These hydrogen bonds between the strands, no, it is called interhydrogen bonds. And Who is that scientist who saw the hydrogen bonds in the DNA structure between the nitrogen bases? Means his name is L.C. Pauling. He saw the existence of hydrogen bonds in the double helical structure. And then another way, if you see, there's one more purine, we know it is guanine. If one strand has guanine, then the other strand should have a complementary base. It should be a pyrimidine. It is cytosine. Then when you see the structure, you can easily make out that the G pairs with C by 3 hydrogen bonds. So 1, 2, 3. This is what is called complementary in base pairing. Means on one strand, if purine is there, the other strand pyrimidine will come. So that is why the ratio of base pairing will be 1:1. It is unity. This is what Crick told it in the year 1950. And because of purine pyrimidine pairing, the diameter of the DNA is constant. It is uniform throughout the helix. How much it is? 2 nanometers or 20 angstroms. Okay. And this is what is the third point under the salient feature. Now, if you see, like I rotated the DNA around the axis in right-handed helix. They told, so BDNA, which is the stable DNA, is a right-handed helix. It is a right-handed helix. So, we are rotating towards the right. This is the next point. And the helical structure, when it rotates, it makes a major groove and minor groove alternatively. We have seen there major groove and minor groove. So, the helix forms alternate major and minor grooves. I told you what is the role of the major groove. Now, when the DNA has to get stability, it should interact with the basic proteins, histone proteins. So, it has to give space for the histone proteins. Major groove is a place where histone proteins will come and bind to make a nucleosome model. So, major groove, what it will do? It provides space for histone proteins. It provides space for histone proteins. Okay, this is the next point they told. Then, what else did they explain? So, the stoichiometry we have already discussed, we will not write here. And whereas it's made up of a polynucleotide. Polynucleotide means made up of sugar, base and phosphate. What is making the backbone? If you see, sugar, phosphate will form the backbone. So, the backbone of the helix. The backbone of the helix is made by sugar and phosphate. The backbone of the helix is made by sugar, phosphate. Sugar, phosphate will make the backbone. So, while then what's the third component which is left out? Nitrogen bases. While nitrogen bases, what are nitrogen bases? Purines, pyrimidines, adenine, guanine, thymine, cytosine. The nitrogen bases, they are projected into the helix. They are projected into the helix towards the axis. The nitrogen bases, they project away from the backbone. They are away from the backbone. They are projected into the helix. They are projected into the helix. Now, these nitrogen bases which are projected into the helix, they base pair with each other by hydrogen bonds. The nitrogen bases form hydrogen bonds among themselves. Now, how do they form hydrogen bonds? Like A pairs with T by 2 hydrogen bonds, G pairs with C by 3 hydrogen bonds. Who is the scientist who told that these hydrogen bonds are there in the structure of DNA? Pauling told that there are hydrogen bonds in the structure of DNA. Now, such a type of coiling where inside also they are again packed, is called plectonemic coiling. Plectonemic coiling means if I take 2 threads and if I rotate, if I leave it, they'll come back. But DNA, you are not holding that end and this end. Because it is inside having hydrogen bonds, it is stable like that. So, that type of coiling is called. Because of these hydrogen bonds, DNA exhibits plectonemic coiling. Plectonemic coiling. What do you mean by plectonemic coiling? So, plectonemic coiling means it is the coiling because of hydrogen bonds which gives the stability to the structure. Now, these hydrogen bonds and the base pairs, if you see, they're stacking one on top of each other like a ladder. On top of this base pair, this talks. On top of this pair, this talks. Like a ladder, like a staircase. Now, one base pair stalks upon another one. Right? One base pair stalks upon another one, which provides additional stability. Which provides additional stability. DNA should be stable. If it is stable, then only it will be the genetic material. So the first and foremost point for the DNA to act as genetic material is stability. So then we are telling that one base pair stalking on top of the other base pair, that also contributes stability along with the hydrogen bonds, provides additional stability along with the hydrogen bonds. So all these are the salient features of DNA. What did we tell? There are two strands. It's a double helical structure. Both the strands run anti-parallel to each other. Both the strands are complementary in base pairing. Both the strands rotate in a right-handed manner. If it is BDNA, it is a right-handed manner. And we have seen the stoichiometry. We have seen the diameter. We have seen the rotation per the complete turn. We have seen the rotation per base pair. We have seen the raise per base pair. We have seen the pitch also. And then we are telling there is a major groove and minor groove. Major groove provides space for the histone proteins to come and bind to give stability to the DNA, and the backbone of the helix is made up of sugar phosphate backbone, and sugar and phosphate are linked by which bond? Sugar and phosphate are linked by phosphodiester bond. Sugar and phosphate are linked by phosphoester bond. Between sugar and phosphate, phosphoester bond. One nucleotide to the other nucleotide, it is phosphorester bond. Phosphorester bond will make the backbone. Hydrogen bonds will make inside, and that gives additional stability. Hydrogen bonds will give additional stability. Stocking on one top of each other will give additional stability. I think you understood in detail about the structure of DNA, and in the next lecture we will discuss about the types of DNA before getting into the packaging of the DNA. Hope you understood the content. If you like the lecture, you can like, share and subscribe to my channel. Thank you.